Well, we come to an interesting point in our travels west, viewers. So in the middle of the night last night, in the middle of the desert of New Mexico, the weather decided to dump about 2 inches of snow out here in the desert. We are 52 feet above sea level. How is it snowing? How is this possible? Even the aliens aren't even liking it. So are we stopping here? Thank God. No. Where we're going is someplace much warmer, much sunnier. Let's hit the road and try not to die. Well, I told you this was going to be a little bit warmer. We are here today in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. Beautiful, balmy 70 degrees, no jackets, no snow. I love it here. And I love what we're looking forward to seeing inside this house, beautifully renovated. And we are going to be following Eric Werner of AJF Inspections around on this property today. And he's just getting here now.
Hey, Brad, how are you doing today?
What's going on, Mr. Eric? How are you? Good to see you again. Dude, I'm so excited to shadow you around on this property here. This place looks absolutely beautiful. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, first of all, I'm really glad to have you here. I'm also really excited to inspect this property. It was built in the 1930s. And so with houses like this and neighborhoods like this in central Phoenix, downtown Phoenix, you never know what you're going to get in a property like this. So I'm always super stoked to check out something like this.
Yeah, so the neighborhood driving up, the neighborhood's a little bit eclectic. It's kind of being brought back up a little bit. A lot of the houses are a little bit older though.
It is, yeah. So a lot of this area was built in the 20s and the 30s. You get anything from original builds that are 600-700 square feet. This one's a little bit bigger. I'm sure it's been added on to. It's about 1,200 square feet here. Yeah, and it does look like it's been very beautifully renovated.
Now, what are some issues that you run into on 1920s houses in this neck of the woods in Phoenix?
Okay, so you do get some structural issues. Over time, the houses settle. They sink into the ground. You get a lot of cracking structural issues. We got old plumbing, we got old electrical, and so we run into things like that. We got knob and tube, we got galvanized lead piping, asbestos materials, and so we could see all kinds of stuff here.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to jumping into it. And there's one thing that I already noticed about the front of the house here. That's that there are no gutters on the front of the home, or actually on the home at all. I mean, do houses in Phoenix really need gutters?
I'm sorry, what's a gutter?
Yeah, what's rain, right?
Yeah, maybe 10-15% of houses have gutters here. I mean, it rains pretty seldom, but we do get some heavy rains. Maybe 10 or 15% of houses actually have gutters on them. It can be a good idea if the house is experiencing soil erosion from rainfall, but generally most houses don't have gutters. So.
Now, tell me a little bit about your process and how you go around the home.
So my process, and I try to do it exactly the same on every inspection, so that way I don't miss anything, I don't forget to do anything. So yeah, so when the client shows up, they typically hang out in the kitchen. So I like to be done in there so we're not working on top of each other. Also, I don't have them opening a hot oven and sticking their hand in there and burning themselves. So I just like to have that all done with first. Usually do a walk around the house, kind of get the general layout, get the lay of the land. Then I'll start on the outside, do everything outside, pool, if the house has one, which a lot of houses here do. Then I'll go to the roof, then up into the attic, and then I'll inspect everything on the inside of the home, the kitchens, bathrooms, living rooms, etc.
Today we're looking at a beautiful 1930s 2-bed, 2-bath bungalow in downtown Phoenix with a crawl space foundation. It was beautifully renovated, but was it done correctly? Let's find out.
Beautiful house. So my first process in the kitchen, basically the first process of any home inspection for me is testing to make sure that we have hot water. We really stink to get halfway through the inspection and then realize we don't have hot water, and then have to figure out what's going on with the water heater. So that's usually step number one, making sure our sink has hot water.
The updated appliances in the kitchen were stunning, but it wouldn't be the first time that I've seen a brand new dishwasher disconnected from the sink plumbing. So like a true pro, Eric checked the connections before running the dishwasher.
So anytime before I start the dishwasher, I always inspect the plumbing below the sink, just to make sure the dishwasher is hooked up to the water supply, to the drain, and make sure nothing's gonna leak when I turn this dishwasher on. Same thing for any of the actual sinks. Before I turn the sink faucet on, I inspect the drain plumbing below and make sure we're not gonna just be running the sink right into the cabinet below.
While Eric finished in the kitchen, I admired the staging, which gave you a touch of humor, some southern charm, but really it was the fit and finish of the home that helped to maintain the classic charm of this 1930s bungalow while improving upon it with an open floor plan and modern fixtures. And the element that captured that attention to detail the best was the windows.
These old, they call these like the weighted pulley windows. Actually has the pulley string up here and the weight down inside of this. I mean, this is classic older home stuff. I love seeing this kind of stuff.
But not every window is perfect.
So this balancer is what it's called. It helps the window to stay in the open position. It keeps it level. As you can see, it's not really level here, not secure. And then this balancer piece needs to be attached down inside the window.
As we proceeded through the house, it became very apparent that Eric was nothing if not a creature of habit, and a man with a plan and a process is a man who's going to do a thorough inspection.
I also take a lot of photos of areas with high likelihood for moisture or leaks. So this shows that the dishwasher and the sink, there's no evidence of leaks here today during the inspection.
The initial pass through the home proceeded clockwise through the living room and into the bedrooms with a quick check on the air conditioning.
So I'm gonna measure our air conditioner cooling system temperature splits, and so that's the difference between the return air and the supply air. So my return air here is 63 degrees, all right? And so I'm gonna make sure that we have an 18 to 22 degrees difference between the return and the supply. So I'm gonna find the closest supply register. I'm gonna measure the temperature there, and it should be between 41 and 45 degrees.
Plumbing checks in the bathroom are usually a time of dead space that I'll fill a buyer in with a story. And what better time than now to get Eric's on how we get into home inspections.
I had a general knowledge for construction when I was growing up. My dad was a contractor, so I worked a lot of summers and weekends with him. And then that kind of built my general knowledge for it. When I moved to Arizona, I got a job working in deconstruction. And so what that is, it was a nonprofit organization, and so when people were renovating their houses, we would go in and gently deconstruct the things that they were getting rid of. So that way they were able to be reused and not just demolished and thrown into a landfill. So that kind of further built my knowledge on houses. If I know how they come apart, they kind of know how they go back together. And then at some point, I got really interested in real estate, and I started looking into it. And one of the gentlemen that I spoke to in the real estate field was a home inspector. And so I kind of talked to him about, what he does and his day-to-day. And it just sounded really interesting to me, and decided to pursue it. And here I am 7 years later doing home inspections.
After completing the interior, we stepped outside where we started to run into a few issues.
This is a vent opening for our underfloor crawl space, and this may be the only opening in here. So I may have to move this rock, take that screen off of there, and just kind of poke my head in and see what I can see in there.
Now, were this a TV show for a major network that has a tendency to overhype minor things that are completely and very easily fixable in a house, we would make a commercial cut right here and go, oh no! But we're not that show, because we home inspectors don't always kill all the deals by blowing little things out of proportion.
Not everything's a big deal. There's some findings I literally see on every single house I've ever inspected. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna check down inside the crawl space right here. The crawl space is very, very common on a house of this age here in the Phoenix area. After about the mid 30s and early 40s, the overwhelming majority of houses are built concrete slab on grade. So most homes I inspect, they don't have crawl spaces like this. But the house has one here. The only opening is these vent openings, and so there's not like a big hatch for me to get in. But I'm gonna be thorough and do the best inspection that I can for my client. So let's take a peek inside and see what we can find. I think this floor beam is sagging across the middle right here, which is why we have so much floor slope.
So a buyer's biggest point of concern with the crawl space is probably settlement, but mine is scorpions.
I once started to enter a crawl space. It was a manufactured home out in a rural area in the Southeast Valley, a town called Gilbert. But I started to get in there. The listing agent came around the corner and she said, "Hey, do you have like a bodysuit or a sweater or something you could put on?" I said, "No, I don't. Why?" She goes, "Well, the crawl space is infested with scorpions." So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go around and crawl around inside there. And yeah, so I started inspecting the inside of the home, and of course I found several scorpions inside the house. And then come to find out, turned on the AC system. We had this subfloor ducting, turn on the AC system, the whole house fills up with skunk smell. So we had infested by scorpions, and a skunk was making his home in the AC ducts in the crawl space below the manufactured home.
Now, scorpions in a crawl space is not something that I've ever seen as a Florida home inspector or a Virginian, but what we saw next, I definitely know about.
So in the desert Southwest, we have subterranean termites, which means subterranean, they live in the soil below our houses. Termites are very, very common. Probably 80% of houses that I inspect will find evidence of termites. I'm a licensed termite inspector in the state of Arizona as well. I've not yet found any evidence of termites in this house, but I can say that this house has been treated for termites, which tells me the house had termites at some point. Now, subterranean termites, very, very small insects, very slow moving, typically don't cause much damage to a home. So, you know, people are moving to the Phoenix, the Southwest area, they hear termites, people usually think, oh my gosh, my house is gonna fall over. But it's not like that here. They're very, very easily treatable, easily manageable. They don't cause much damage besides going through a door frame or a window frame or something like that. The reason I know this house was treated, if you look at the concrete here, there's patch marks. Okay, there's patch marks right up against the side of the house. And so that is where they drilled a hole to spray their treatment into the ground to treat for the termites, and then they patch those drill openings with this mortar to patch the openings up. So we've got some patch marks here on this step up into the house, and then on the side of the bedroom over here, there's more patch marks in the concrete, which again tells me the house has been treated for termites. So about every 12 to 18 inches, they drill a hole, spray the treatment, and then patch those holes. So that's what I'm looking at here.
So while structure was proving to be a point of concern, we quickly jump right back to the highlight reel with heavied up electrical and a new tankless water heater.
All right, the house has 200 amp service, so I'm sure at the time this was built was probably 100, maybe even as little as 50 amp service to the house, but it's been updated, which is great. Sometimes there's a tag here that tells me when it was updated, but there's nothing here. This one appears to be maybe 25, 30 years old, which is totally fine by me.
And you know, when I heard about these specific water heaters when they debuted years ago, I thought it would be fun to install them for a career, but I heard it was a tankless job. Anyway, back to Eric.
We've got a couple of findings here. We got a leaking water pipe and improper temperature pressure relief discharge pipe.
Water may have been the biggest issue facing this home, as evidenced by several clues.
This area here on the back patio, we can see that it's actually sloping towards the house, evidenced by the fact that there's water staying on the patio right here, and there's a crack in the patio, so it looks like part of it's kind of sloping that way. This area of the home is actually one area where gutters could be beneficial. So they'd run a gutter line across the roof line here, keep the water coming out to the backyard here instead of pooling up on the patio over here.
So it sounds like there was some merit to my gutter question in the beginning, and on that note, onward and upward.
These shingles appear to be in really decent condition. I'm going to estimate approximately 5 to 10 years in the age of these. I'll also notify my clients the average life of these composition shingles is about 20 to 25 years. As I'm going through, I'm going to be inspecting for any deterioration, missing, misplaced shingles, things like that would allow for water penetration. But at this point, the shingles appear to be in decent condition.
Now, hands down, one of my favorite things about this job is respectfully and creatively remodeled historical homes. But as I learned climbing old row houses in Washington, D.C., the second best thing might just be the view from the top.
So whenever I'm inspecting a roof out here in the desert Southwest, I always like to take a couple minutes and just kind of soak in the view and just kind of see what I can see up here. In this particular case, you get downtown Phoenix over here. You got the Diamondback Stadium, all the skyscrapers in downtown Phoenix. The hospital where my wife works is actually right over here. It's really cool to see all this stuff. Some of the more rural areas like North Scottsdale, East Mesa, there's a lot of mountains, and man, you can just take in the views of all the mountains and the desert scenery. I mean, I could stay up here for a while and just kind of soak it all in. It's always a beautiful view from the roofs out here in the desert.
And as we started to wrap up, we encountered something I'd never seen before.
So what we're looking at here, this is what we call a gas pack. So it's a gas package unit, which means it's an air conditioner, it's a gas furnace, it's your air handler, all packaged into one unit mounted here on the roof. It's very common out here in the desert Southwest. We're going to be doing inspecting just as we normally would on your air conditioner, on your gas furnace. The only difference is that everything is in one location up here. The return and the supply air coming from the house and back into the house comes through this plenum right here. And the air is conditioned inside here. This one is gas, so you've got a gas supply pipe supplying the burners inside here. I'm going to be determining the age of this unit based on the data tag that's over here. We got the condensate drain pipe that's traditionally attached to your air handler. And right here, it's going off the roof. It should be routed away from the house a little bit better.
And with the roof wrapped, we had one last stop.
All right, so here we have the attic access. This is typically a spot where I usually find a lot of hidden findings. There's always skeletons in the attic. There's always unprofessional wiring that the electrician hit up there, missing insulation, old, corroded, galvanized plumbing, that kind of stuff. However, this attic is really in impeccable condition. They've upgraded the insulation with newer blown-in fiberglass insulation, which is great to have. The levels look great. Updated air conditioning ducts, the flexible ducts running through the attic. Updated Romex wiring inside here. There's updated PEX plumbing inside here, which is very, very common for this day and age. So especially for an old house, this attic is really, really in great shape.
To recap the highs, we have a beautiful remodel with new updated appliances and gorgeous restoration work. Items of concern might include structural issues, termite damage, and poor drainage at the rear of the home. Well, that's going to wrap it up for an inspection here in Arizona. Eric, thank you so much for having me out today. How did it go wrapping up with the client?
Well, the wrap-up went really well. And it was a pleasure to have you along on the inspection, first of all. But yeah, the wrap-up went really great. So one of the most important things for me during the wrap-up is to convey to the client all the good things about the house. So I really touched on the fact that it had new electrical, new plumbing, a great air conditioner, a newer roof, and so it had some really positive parts of the house. Some of the things that we focused on that should be repaired or evaluated going forward were some of the structural issues. We had the sloping floor. We had the water that was pooling up against the house in the backyard that may have been causing some structural related concerns. So I just told them, make sure we keep water flowing away from the house, maybe add some gutters across the back. But all in all, the wrap-up went really well.
Fantastic, man. No, that's great. So this is inspections in the wintertime. What's it like inspecting in Arizona in the summer?
In the summer, well, as everybody knows, it's very, very hot here, and so it's very important to stay hydrated. So you got to really drink a lot of water, and then make sure you stay inside in the cool AC as much as possible. Also in the summertime here in the desert, the rattlesnakes come out and they like to hide under rocks and around cactus and stuff while we're inspecting the outside of the house. So it's very important to watch your step in the summertime.
So I've had the pleasure of working with some sole proprietors in the home inspection industry, but you work on a multi-inspector team. What are some of the advantages to working on a team the way you do?
Well, first of all, you get a really great training process. I was trained by several inspectors who have 10, 15, 20 years experience in the field. And if I ever have questions about anything while I'm in the field, I can always contact any of those inspectors, either through a phone call or a text message, send them a picture of what I'm looking at, and I'm able to ask plenty of questions about if I have questions along the way.
Sure, yeah, no, absolutely. That support sounds fantastic, man. So Eric, well, thank you so much for having me out. This has been a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to wrap it up from beautiful, warm, sunny Arizona, and there's so much more to come. So stay tuned, keep watching, and I'll see you down the road.